Hello, everyone. It's your host, Daniel Litwin, the voice of B2B, and welcome to our CEDIA 2022 live update broadcast event. Again, I'm your host, Daniel Litwin. We appreciate you tuning in to what's hopefully going to be some on-the-ground updates here from the hottest residential home tech show of the year. Again, that would be CEDIA Expo 2022. It is, again, the hit residential technology show of the year. It's at Dallas's K. Bailey Hutchinson Convention Center, which is right in MarketScale's backyard here in downtown Dallas, Texas. And it's chock full of insights from the home tech market with a showcase of over 300 brands and integration, design, and construction of smart home technology. So with our broadcast here, we're going to be giving you a pulse on some of the companies that are at the show today. We're going to be discussing some of the high-level trends that we find most interesting from the show. And then we're also going to get some exclusive interviews with not only George Katsiris, General Manager of Savant Systems, but also Daryl Friedman, Global President and CEO of CEDIA. So you're not going to want to miss these updates. I'm actually joined here now by our correspondent, Mr. Tyler Kern, who's on the show floor, giving us some updates and getting a pulse on who's at the show, what they're talking about, and what is catching everyone's eye. So, Tyler Kern, great to have you on, man. How you doing?
Yeah, it's great to be on with you, Daniel. I am doing great. I'm going up the escalator right now as we head up to the show. So, you know, you're getting a live look in because I'm really excited to be here. Like you said, it's just right here in our backyard. So yeah, awesome to be here down at the K. Bailey Hutchinson Dallas Convention Center as we head up the escalator and head to CEDIA 2022, man.
I love it. You are climbing high, metaphorically and literally speaking.
Yeah, exactly.
Love you tuning in, with your mobile feed here today. We appreciate you taking some time to chat with us. So just give us your high-level overview, man. What's the energy like at the show this year? And, based on the signage around the show and, some of the advertised events, what seem to be the main points of conversation or the leading topics that are driving convos there on the show floor?
Yeah, it's a great question, Daniel. And while it feels like things from an energy perspective and an attendance perspective are starting to get back to normal following COVID, and you have a lot of people here, and it's a really exciting and energetic atmosphere. You still can't escape the fact that some of the prevailing conversation is around things that came out as a result of COVID, right? The idea of more and more technology getting put into the home, work from home. There's a whole work from home showcase here right now, and so it's bringing a lot of connectivity and integration back into the home and things like that. And so that's the focus, right? Is that even though we are now in a post-COVID landscape, let's say, a lot of the conversation is still around how things have evolved because of COVID as a result of it, where things are going, and trying to find solutions that enable people to do work and to enjoy, I guess, life at home. Because more and more people are spending more time at home as a result, just whether it's work or life. We were stuck in our homes for a while and thought of things that we'd like to improve while we were there. So that's a lot of what we're seeing at the show this year, and a lot of solutions built around how do we create collaboration for people who are working from home, who are working in this new hybrid workplace world. A lot of that as well, a lot of collaboration kind of technology, and trying to figure out some solutions as far as just meeting equity and things along those lines. So those are some of the major themes we've seen just running around the show here today. A lot more great stuff to discuss and to talk about as the show continues.
Yeah, man, definitely. And you bring up an interesting point there too, that sort of the boundaries of residential and commercial are really starting to blur. And if that wasn't already happening, the pandemic was a major catalyst or accelerator of that trend. Because like you mentioned, work from home, hybrid, and general remote work models dominated and continue to have a place in the future of, the workplace. So naturally, when the home is also the office and the office, bleeds out into the home, what role does connected technology play? How do you make sure that as an enterprise, your nodes that are in residential areas are still as safe as the ones running on your own enterprise level network, right? There's so many layers to unpack there. But like you said, we'll get into that here in a little bit. What I want to do first, though, and this is coming from one of our other correspondents that's at the show, Mr. Ben Thomas. He's the host of Pro AV Today. He's been at the show for several days now and has been getting a pulse with several companies that are on the show floor, showcasing their innovative technologies and highlighting their role in this evolving ecosystem. So he got to chat with some of those companies, and what we want to do now is showcase a compilation of some of those most exciting technologies and conversations. So here are some of those highlights with Mr. Ben Thomas.
Here at Modus VR at CEDIA 2022, we're talking about design services in VR from Modus. It's a big new kind of frontier for AV integrators to show their customers and create level playing fields for non-technical stakeholders and projects. A lot of times a customer just can't get the technical concepts through their minds, and so we have lots of great visualizations to help them see what we're talking about in AV design systems. In the residential space, so traditionally our model has been based on the integrator buying the software and using it in-house. Modus as a service allows a lot of that ramp up time just to become instantaneous. So a customer who hasn't been able to train up on the software and learn how to use it, or just simply can't find the hours in the day to build out rooms in VR, can come to us and we'll do all that work for them. It's really game changing in a lot of ways, but we've seen customers who are unable to show some of these concepts in rooms any other way use VR as a tool to just really illustrate what they want to do in a room and get instantaneous alignment with their stakeholders.
Hey, it's George Katsiris here, General Manager of Savant's Professional Smart Home Business, and we're at CEDIA Expo 2022. Excited to launch our partnership with Megapixel. This is a video wall technology. It's breathtaking. As you can see, looks basically like an OLED with deep blacks and scales all the way up as big as you can possibly imagine. You see them in stadiums and other things, but we're bringing this into the luxury residential space because it's basically thin as an iPad, magnetically connect 12-inch by 12-inch tiles, as you can see from some of the brackets and the things here and how they connect to the walls, scaling all the way up. We're also showing and announcing our new music service integration with Apple Music, which is part of our Savant Music service, and so we're showing that here over at the sports bar.
Hi everyone, this is Jennifer Kirkpatrick with ProLux by American Lighting. We're here at CEDIA. We have a lot of fun stuff to show you guys. What we're really excited about are all these unique opportunities to light countertops, backlighting acrylic. We also have our new Spectrum Plus system, all wirelessly controlled. It also integrates with Control4. What our integrators are looking for at this show are opportunities to sell to a broader market, so we're giving them the solutions to do it.
So at Sony, what we're seeing is a lot of integration happening where we never saw before, and that's really with our CI and Resi installers. They're doing a lot of work with small businesses up to large businesses. A lot of focus on digital signage, directory boards, wayfinding, digital menu boards, the whole line. And at Sony, we've really seen that change in the industry, and we really support that from both our consumer as well as our professional side of our products. Everything from the 32-inch to the 100-inch and our direct view LEDs as well. It's all going into those spaces now. Obviously, my most favorite thing I see in the show is this beautiful 4K crystal LED. It's probably my favorite thing every time I get to see it. But I think the thing I saw probably across the board is a lot of focus from a lot of different manufacturers on both Pro and Resi and on that blending. So whether it's been on control, audio, speakers, video, you name it. That's actually this is my first CEDIA, so it was great to see that and to see how much that crossover is actually happening.
So at CEDIA this year, we're showing off FlexStyle, which is a new open roll decorative bracket for shades, for interior shading. So we've got 9 different color choices, all cast aluminum, so a nice feel to them and a nice finish on all of it. And we can do these up to about 8 to 10 feet wide, depending on the type of fabric that's being used on the shades. So it'll be available in October, and any of our motors that we sell can be used with those brackets as well. So we showed up at CEDIA last year in Indianapolis. Didn't turn out as well as we'd hoped, but this year it's great. show floor is extremely busy. We've been busy the whole time. Well, the big exterior, the push outside, which has probably been because of the pandemic, people wanted to stay home and spend time outside. We have a full line of shading products for the exterior as well, so we got you covered on the inside and out.
Right here at the show today, we're talking about Episode Radiance. It's a new outdoor lighting and music speaker system. So completely modular, gives you the ability to have lights and music throughout your yard, all run on a single 2-conductor wire. It's modular, so I can add lighting, speakers, just lights. I can hang them from the ceiling, mount them to the wall, even mount them on the ground. So Episode Radiance shipping a little later this year.
I think the state of residential audio is quite healthy right now, as evidenced here at the trade show. I think one of the things that's happened over the pandemic, people were stuck at home and you couldn't go out, you couldn't go see a movie, you couldn't go to a concert, you couldn't go to a sporting event, and people wanted to bring those entertainment experiences into their home. So what we found is that people are willing to invest now in a higher performance, greater experience to have into their home. So people are buying new audio systems, bigger TVs, anything where they could bring that to the family and bring it into the home. So it's been a great thing during the pandemic. If there's great things that can be had about a pandemic, I think it's the investment people are making in home AV.
So we've been doing HDMI over IP going back now almost 14 years. We've been in business for 30 years. A handful of years ago we released, I guess it's been 8 years ago, we released our 3G product, which is 4K over IP. At that point in time, the best thing you could get, the best thing you could do was 4K 30. As far as performance from displays, performance from sources. That 4K 30, we have the ability to upscale and downscale it as well. At this show, we're super excited to be in Dallas, but we have now launched last year our Max Color product, which is 4K 60, 444 from source to screen. It's over a gig network. It's certified Dolby Vision. So everything coming out of your source is going to play on your display. When you're doing a lot of video matrixing, you get different EDIDs, you get displays with different resolutions, you get clients that want to keep an old display that they've had for 2 years, because sometimes the display is old when it's 2 years old. So we do highest common denominator. You want to send your sources across the network at the highest resolution. We're going to give 4K 60, 444, the best resolution possible to all of your high-res screens. When you introduce lower res screens, or as I call them, less fortunate screens, the receiver behind the display that we manufacture will convert the 4K 60, 444 to 4K 30 or to 1080p. And that allows people to keep displays longer. When they replace that 4K 30 or 1080p screen with something new, then the receiver will recognize that and change the resolution.
Resi-Commercial AV is really something that a lot of integrators are just starting to connect with, because so many projects are tying back to wherever there's projects happening in the commercial space. Those folks also have homes and spaces they want to be well fitted with all the technology. And so the integrator that's working in the office oftentimes gets asked, hey, can you do this at my house? And so you start to see a lot of that crossover happening, and they become comfortable with doing those types of projects, which is great. And the home office space has changed everything. You know, people working from home. We have so many solutions at Legrand, we're just saying yes, right? We've got chief solutions where we can mount 2 monitors, on folks' desks, and they're like, oh, I need that at my house, you know? So it's so interesting to hear that just about everybody seems to be working from home nowadays. Right here, we've got the Daylight Sightline product. It's a CE Pro and Projector Central award-winning this year, so we're pretty excited about it. Uses airplane cable to drop out of the ceiling, and when we have that, we're able to effectively put this wherever we need to have this product land. If you have a center channel underneath it, you get rid of all the extra drop, all the extra measurements, all of the extra anything. You install the product, you program it to drop as far as it needs to drop so the picture looks great. It's tension just on the screen, and we eliminate all sorts of flaws with having extra fabric on the screen. Having to roll it back up, having to change the way a system looks and feels later, 3-4 years later when speakers change, etc. can also use this in residential spaces because right above it you'd have space to mount a camera for video conferencing, and clearly that's something that is not going away anytime soon. And so being able to have different solutions available so it fits the fit and finish, the aesthetic of the space, we can answer that with a yes.
So naturally, y'all, a major spread of technologies and of, different layers that are complementing and helping build new foundations for the connected home industry and the residential tech sector as a whole. So thanks again to Ben Thomas for chatting with all those companies, and thank you again to all the companies featured for taking some time to speak with us. We're back now with our on-the-ground correspondent, Mr. Tyler Kern. Tyler, great to have you back on, man.
Great to be back.
Yeah, man. I just want to briefly pick your brain on some of the topics you brought up earlier, mostly this trend of the connected home. Obviously, that's what the whole show is about, but there are so many elements to what is defining the now and the future of the connected home. And even beyond CEDIA, I know you've had a lot of conversations as of late with professionals in this sector. And so I'm curious, what are folks talking about, not only at the show, but just more generally in this sector right now? What's guiding conversation, and what seem to be maybe some opportunities or concerns, around implementing this technology, making the most of it, and building sustainable foundations?
Yeah, no, great questions, Daniel. Obviously, the connected home is becoming a more and more ubiquitous thing, and we've started to see technology become a lot more accessible for people to have a connected home, to build a smart home, if you will, right? You have companies out here that are doing a lot in the way of even energy, and then, with Pro AV and all the different things that you can do with your home being connected and smart and all these things. Obviously, like, one of the biggest concerns will always be security when you talk about connected home, right? How can I make sure that all of these things are connected securely? How can I make sure that I have consistent network connectivity? These are some of the concerns that people are always going to have around these topics. That solutions are coming, I believe, for some of these things, but it's not always the easiest to come up with great solutions for, okay, how do I protect all of these different entry points? And when you consider that sometimes you're going to have maybe a smart home hub that's going to be a different brand than certain other devices. So how do you make sure that all those things play together in one cohesive, nice system? That's some of the solutions that we're seeing out here today, is people bringing some of these things to market that really brings everything together under one umbrella and then provides it securely, because that security aspect is still one of the largest issues that people are trying to solve, and people are still asking a lot of questions about those sorts of things. So those are the developments that I think we still need to see in this connected home area, is how do you connect everything under one umbrella? How do you do it securely? How do you have peace of mind that there is security there?
And there are different standards too, right? The residential standard for cybersecurity versus the enterprise standard for cybersecurity. We may be entering a realm where we shouldn't be considering those as sort of two different standards, right, with the emergence of this connective tissue and this blurring of lines between sort of the enterprise work environment and the home work environment. But still, those standards are, sometimes ill-defined, sometimes sporadically defined. And I think this year we're really seeing companies try to play their role in creating that unity. And same with just sort of who holds the responsibility, right? Is it the network provider's responsibility to, keep cybersecurity standards to a certain degree to meet this expansion of residential and commercial connected nodes, right? Or is it the device manufacturers that need to be investing more heavily in making sure their nodes are secure or are resistant to bad actors, right? Is it the end users that need training to better understand how to keep these nodes secure through their own active use of said nodes? There's so many layers again. And I think the answer is everyone is going to play a role. And so hopefully shows like CEDIA are helping connect those dots and provide opportunities for people to brainstorm and understand, how's my role complemented by yours, right?
Yeah, and what you're mentioning is whose responsibility is it? I think the most common answer you're going to find is it's a little bit of everybody's responsibility, right? But that requires everyone to play nice with each other and to be speaking the same language, not in a actual linguistic sense, but in a working towards a common goal sense. And so that's, I think, the issue, and why having shows like this and being back in person the way we are here at CEDIA 2022 in Dallas is so important, right? Because as much as collaboration has expanded and our collaboration tools have expanded and all these things are fantastic, it is still paramount to get under one roof like this to see what other technologies are out there, what people are doing in, like you said, different nodes of this landscape, and make sure that, that people are all kind of agreeing on what priorities are, what's coming next, what are you working on, and how can I fit into that, and how can we create partnerships around that. I think that's what makes shows like this so valuable and so important, even in 2022, and maybe especially in 2022, seeing as how we went so long without having shows like this and being able to be in person. So to me, that's what makes something like this event so dang important.
Fully agreed, man. And last thing I want to mention too is just one of the one of the conversations that are being hosted here at the show. Obviously there are several speakers, there are several keynotes guiding conversation and creating touch points that reflect some of the moving pieces that are most important as this residential home tech sector expands. One that caught my eye as I was reviewing the speakers list was the event Wellness in the Home, a Technology Insight. So this is being ran by Michelle Gus. She's a vice president of hospitality at Crestron Electronics. And also Kelly Eager is speaking on that panel. She's senior vice president at Delos. Basically, their whole conversation is around, quote, examining the value propositions that are critical to expanding this segment of our industry and providing proven scientific evidence that underpins the values of smart tech solutions for health and wellness, end quote. Now, that includes things like lighting to maintain circadian cycles indoors, advanced air remediation to improve the quality of air, shading and lighting fixtures to bring you closer to nature. All of these elements that seem a little more esoteric, right? A little more sort of like hard to grasp or to make tangible, is like, how do I gauge whether or not my home tech environment is meeting my health and wellness needs? But I think this is an important conversation point because, like you mentioned, people are spending more time indoors. Work is happening not only, at the work environment, but also at home. Those lines are blurring. And therefore, the environment where you need to feel comfortable, where you spend a huge portion of your entire life, now needs to be supported with technology that makes you comfortable, makes you feel supported, right? And so I found this to be a really engaging conversation point, and something I think everyone should consider as they develop new solutions is, how can we make our solution fit into an ecosystem that has that layer of health and wellness, and that creates insights into data and analytics, right? So that we can measure that and actually make it an actionable metric for ROI for these investments. Man, so many layers, so many things to talk about at CEDIA, but we're going to go ahead and toss it over to one of our more focused conversations here with our host of Pro AV today, Ben Thomas. He had the pleasure of welcoming George Katsiris. He's general manager of Savant Systems into our MarketScale studios. Savant Systems is a home automation, smart energy management, and monitoring company, and they had a great conversation about some of the challenges and opportunities surrounding the current phase of home automation. So let's go ahead and toss it over to that interview with our host of Pro AV today, Ben Thomas, and GM of Savant Systems, George Katsiris. Take it away.
Well, you talked a little bit about kind of those new home builds, and that's one of the markets that's kind of emerging for some of the manufacturers in the market as a whole, because you look at some of these home builders, and instead of adding space or making larger rooms, they're including home automation as a selling point into some of their new builds, whether that's energy automation. I say that down here in Texas because we had a pretty massive winter storm a few years ago that killed our power. Would have been helpful to have that, but whether it's that or integrated home theater systems or outdoor, pool pump systems that respond to, whatever command you want to give it. It's interesting from a marketing standpoint because the profile of that buyer is a little bit different. Is there, from a product design process, I feel like it's probably pretty similar, but from a market identification and even marketing standpoint, how is that market a little bit different than the traditional residential end user kind of making that decision?
Well, it's a great point. I would say that, we have different cornerstones that we focus on. One is power for sure, and that is the most foundational, literally, to any kind of smart home that you're going to have, and where everything is going. You have entire counties banning pulling any kind of propane. You have such a quick shift, whether it's the major car manufacturers saying all their vehicles will be electric in the next 10 years. And so the demand for electric is going through the roof, but so is the consumption, and the grid is the oldest in the world. And so the grid itself just can't handle it, as you guys have seen here at certain moments when it's peaking, and it's just going to get worse. So we pride ourselves on having, and it also hasn't been changed in, forever. Think about it. The breaker in your house is one of the dumbest kind of things still around. And so our smart breaker companion modules give that kind of dynamic load control and management to the users, and that's something that I think a lot of people building new homes see adds tons of value, because it's going to be there for decades on an ongoing basis. And inherent to that is lighting control, actually, in our power management system. So that's important, because that's another thing, and I'd say there's wants and needs. So marketing is important to make sure that you're touching on, depending on who you're marketing to, what is it? Is it something that you're talking to a builder and they're going to see that as something that can be built into the mortgage that they're selling? And then there's the things that people actually want every day, which quite frankly is entertainment. That's what still to this day brings most people through the doors of our dealers. They're asking for music throughout their home, video throughout their home. And so, and they're not mutually exclusive. It's very important to us to have a great experience, and we always start with the user experience and work our way backwards. So that dovetails nicely into marketing as well, reaching out to the users, letting them know what we have that we feel could add to their lifestyle improvement, and then working our way backwards to the technology itself.
Well, thanks again to George Katsiris for joining us in the studio, and thanks again to Ben for running such an engaging conversation there. Tyler, it's been a pleasure having you join us from the CEDIA show floor. We're going to go ahead and wrap up by tossing to our last interview. But before we do so, we've got a lot of other coverage from CEDIA happening. Where can folks find it, Tyler?
Yeah, people need to go to MarketScale.com. There on the front page, we're going to have our running CEDIA update. So you want to make sure, go check that out. If you want to stay up to date with the trends, the different topics that are being discussed at the show, head to MarketScale.com now.
And we'll be highlighting some of the best bits from our main interviews here too, if you want a more condensed version of those. So Tyler Kern, correspondent at CEDIA 2022. Thanks so much for your time today.
Let's go CEDIA 2022.
Love it. Love the energy, King. All right. Last but not least, let's go ahead and toss it over to our closing interview here for our live broadcast. This is a conversation with the global president and CEO of CEDIA, Daryl Friedman. Ben Thomas, our host of Pro AV today, had the pleasure of chatting with him to discuss the most important trends that are shaping conversation at CEDIA this year. So let's go ahead.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Pro AV today. We're on the heels of a fantastic CEDIA show, and if nothing else, it really showed us as a community that the residential market is back and more powerful really than it's ever been. You look at initiatives like whole home automation, energy automation, storage, even hybrid working, things like that. Those are now impacting the way that our residential market is doing business. And wanted to bring on somebody that has been in the industry for a little bit and somebody who has maybe just a little bit of insight into what's going on in the space today. I've got my good friend Daryl Friedman, Global President and CEO of CEDIA. Daryl, thanks so much for hopping on the show today.
So great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Daryl, when I think of residential, as an AV purist, at times it's easy to kind of shy away from that market, right? Because traditionally it's been assumed to be a little bit more consumer facing. It's been a little bit more commercial and not necessarily the B2B side. But as AV and as the industry has evolved specifically, you look at some of these residential installations, that's a legitimate enterprise market these days, especially coming out of a post-pandemic world. In your opinion, where are we today in the life cycle of that residential industry?
Well, in some ways, we're at the very beginning because this industry is about to explode even further. But in some ways, the past few years have really told homeowners and architects and builders and everyone in our space the value and the potential of their homes. So we've really seen an incredible growth, but I think that growth is really at its infancy. In some ways, it's going to be even stronger in the coming years.
Well, and what's exciting the most, I think, is really finding that bridge between the technology and what I'll call the traditional residential hardware, right? Like you look at doors and locks and thermostats, things that used to be not necessarily dumb tools, but now they're being integrated into whole home automation systems and location-based awareness tools and energy automation tools. You know, as we continue to build that bridge between the technology and the kind of that OG hardware side, you know, what are some of those places that you're seeing that technology meshing really, really well?
Well, it's amazing how much awareness has been built over the past few years in terms of this whole house automation. I think if you would ask somebody just a few years ago if they had a smart home, and they might say, yeah, I have a thermostat or a lock, and that would be it. But today, consumers and everyone in the business is really understanding that all of these things can be so beautifully integrated where you don't have to think about your house, and your house really understands your needs. And so some of the really exciting segments I think we're going to be seeing are wellness, lighting and shading. Those are really growth opportunities for this industry.
Well, and what's cool too about, you know, those growth opportunities, especially as we look on the enterprise kind of installation and AV side, is that, you know, home automation even 5-10 years ago was, for most people, let's stick an Alexa device in our house, right? You know, there were obviously those large scale home theaters and people who had the original smart homes, but the reality is these days we're seeing more and more people realize how easy it can be. And obviously it scales down all the way to what we'll call that voice assistant technology, and all the way up to legitimate whole home automation. But, you know, I mentioned a little bit earlier, kind of that hardcore traditional AV community being a little bit reluctant to look at the residential space as a viable market. You know, in your opinion, why is that? And how has that conversation changed over the last few years?
Well, I think you can look at the evolution of CEDIA itself. I mean, we are the smart home industry, but really it started over 30 years ago with the people who were putting in AV equipment into people's homes. So it's always been about residential for us. And I think in those times it was, as you say, it was an AV industry. And then as CEDIA evolved and the technology evolved and the homeowners' expectations evolved, you're seeing now an embrace of all sorts of technologies in the home. And I think the pandemic really, just because we were so locked in those abodes for so many years, it really just opened up people's eyes. And our CEDIA integrators did a great service for making those homes available, not just for a comfortable place or a place where you can watch movies, but a place you can have your children educated, a place you can continue to have meetings at work, and really just evolve with CEDIA over time to become what is really an industry that's very, very robust and mature today, as we saw at the CEDIA Expo this week.
Absolutely. And kind of sticking on that what I'll call the original residential market, right? A little bit more of the kind of old school hardware. You know, one of the things that you're seeing is that these companies, whether it be smart lock manufacturers or smart doors or even drapes and shading, things like that, they're having to make steps into integrated technology, right? Whether that's manufacturer specific, whether that's API specific, things like that. But, you know, what advice do you give to those people that are just now kind of making that step into more the automated state of maybe an original product that was not necessarily integrated to the internet?
Well, I would tell them to listen to the consumer, listen to the homeowner, and as well as the architects and designers. They will be demanding this. They will be demanding integrated technologies. It won't be enough to plug in a speaker and say that's going to be satisfactory to the homeowner. So I would tell them to be part of this. There's numerous control systems out there that work with numerous technologies. For the next phase, that's going to be very important to the homeowner, and for the residents, whole home integration is going to be the future.
Well, and I'll give you a little product placement here. You talked about the CEDIA Expo a little bit ago. Obviously, a show that made its return this year for the first time, and I think 3 years, right? Was it 2 or 3?
Well, last year we had a smaller show, but it's been really 3. This is the first full show in about 3 years.
Well, how was it to be back? Certainly, it's been great to be at a number of shows, but how was it for you guys to be back in action this year?
It was so exciting to have that kind of energy and to have people back face to face. I mean, for many of our community, it had been 3 years since they've even seen each other, and let alone seeing the new technologies and all the interesting things on the show floor. But this is a community, and it was just very exciting to see. Well, the numbers will be coming out, but close to 15,000 people and a sold out trade show floor. And it's just been a very special time because it's been so long since we've all had the chance to be together.
Well, let's talk about it from a CEDIA as an organization standpoint, right? When you it's easy to think of the CEDIA Expo as what we'll call the manifestation of the organization, but CEDIA does so much more behind the scenes than just put the expo together. It's, you look across AV as a whole, right? Organizations like Avixa, AIMS, NAB, guys like that do so much for the community throughout the year. But talk about the importance of CEDIA throughout the year and being part of that community throughout the year, not just specifically at the expo.
Right. Well, thank you for asking that. There are 51 other weeks during the year, and CEDIA is active in all of them. We're doing primarily the service to our community as a nonprofit association serving this residential technology community. Our focus, really, our pillars are advocacy, connection, and education. And advocacy is really telling that story, really championing this industry to adjacent trades, homeowners, as well as government bodies who are trying often to put regulations in that they don't realize could be harmful for our industry. And then connection is like we had this week, bring people together online as well. And we have people and members in 70 countries around the world. We do our best to connect them all to learn from each other. And finally, education, which is key for us. We want to make sure this is a skilled industry. We have the only globally recognized certification in this industry. We want to continue to skill people's knowledge so they can be effective and be efficient in people's homes. So really the work is going on, and we have a great staff and a great board really guiding us, and I think CEDIA is really on track to be in a great new phase.
Well, and you talk about the great work that CEDIA does the other 51 weeks of the year. A lot of that has to do with obviously research, but also end user engagement, right? One of the things that I love the work that you guys do is give some of that information to manufacturers and integrators about what the end user is looking for, right? Because at the end of the day, the integrator probably hears a lot more of that than the actual hardware manufacturer does. But the work that you guys are doing to engage those end users is incredibly helpful. Going into the next maybe 2-3 years, what are some of those things that you're seeing end users increase the demand for?
Well, we're doing a lot of research on the marketplace itself. We just did a complete market study last year, and I think manufacturers and integrators are looking at that information as useful. But we're also trying to reach the consumer more effectively through just more savvy SEO and other ways of trying to help the consumer understand that there's more than installation, there's integration. Integration is really making a seamless home where everything works together beautifully. You don't have 20 remotes, you don't have 3 apps on your phone, you have one control system. So the next phase for CEDIA is to really reach that homeowner, that consumer, and help them understand the beauty of whole home automation. And CEDIA is the organization poised to do that.
Well, I appreciate you giving me the what's next for CEDIA, but if you had the crystal ball in front of you, what would you say is next in residential AV and installation, right? We're at whole home automation. We're at, kind of the energy automation world. What would you say is that next fully realized version of residential AV?
Well, one area I think that we're going to see a lot of growth in, one that's very interesting for us to watch at CEDIA, is the wellness sector. I mean, I think as our population is aging, we're going to see more and more people need this technology in their homes, and people's lives can stay the same. They can live in the same place. They don't have to adjust their lives as they get older because the technology in their homes will make up for any deficiencies they have as their health, as they age. So I think really, and not just for seniors, but for anybody with disabilities or any sort of needs, whole home automation can kind of fulfill those needs and make life even better. So it's one of the most exciting sectors that we're watching.
Well, Daryl, I love to hear it, especially when you start to humanize the technology as you look into that wellness sector. And at the end of the day, as an AV and as a residential AV community, our goal is to better serve our customers and our end users. And look, if we're keeping them healthy, we're doing literally just that. So I love to hear it. But, Daryl, congrats again on a great show. It was wonderful to have you on Pro AV today, and we hope to have you on again soon.
Thanks for having me. It was great to talk to you.
And thank you guys again for listening and watching. Be sure to tune in next time.